It's no exaggeration to say that Hayao Miyazaki is one of the most influential filmmakers of all time.
There's something about Man in the Suit and Bow Tie that I found like very stylish, it's like old school, you know? Miyazaki grew up in Japan after war.
The Studio Ghibli co-founder is behind some of the most well-known and beloved anime movies ever made, from early hits like My Neighbor Totoro and Princess Mononoke, to widely acclaimed classics like Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle. Miyazaki is known all
Why do you dislike Miyazaki?
across Japan for his signature blend of fantasy and slice-of-life storytelling, though he's also famous outside of his home country. He has plenty of fans in America, including several big Hollywood filmmakers, but it's no secret that he isn't exactly fond of old Uncle Sam. In fact, Miyazaki has said some pretty scathing things about the United States over the years. Back in 2015, this image began circulating on the Japanese website 2 channel. It comes from the book Hayao Miyazaki Image Board Collection, which was published more than 3 decades earlier, back in 1983. It's hard to find these.
Oh, I like the Ghibli stuff. I think they're very emotional masterpieces.
But if you ever manage to get your hands on a physical copy, then
they appeal to people that aren't even in anime, like that aren't even anime watchers.
You're in for a real treat. It contains some of Miyazaki's earliest image boards, giving readers a glimpse into his initial ideas for the likes of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, Laputa, Castle in the Sky, and Princess Mononoke, among others. It's beautiful to look at, but it's more than just a collection of images. This book also includes a bunch of doodles that Miyazaki annotated with his thoughts on various topics, including America. In this note, Miyazaki discusses the trouble he had when his wife became pregnant, and he decided it was time that he learned how to drive. He states that because he was against the Americanization of Japan, he had no interest in riding in an automobile. He drew a little angry version of himself in the top right hand corner of this page, along with a bunch of anti-American statements like anti-jeans, anti-bourbon, anti-burgers, anti-fried chicken, anti-cola, anti-American coffee, anti-New York, anti-West Coast, and Disneyland, go back to America. He even wrote, hooray for suited takeoff, fuck briefs.
But he lived after the war, so that's probably why. If you guys are saying he lived after the war, then I understand the sentence, he is a man of his time.
Expressing his distaste for tighty whities worn by Americans.
To be perfectly honest, Americans don't have the best reputation outside of America.
Understand why
I don't think that's a controversial statement.
Why he was so full of hate for all things America back then, you have to go back even further. Miyazaki was born in Tokyo on the 5th of January 1941, just 4 months after Japan entered World War II. His father was the director of Miyazaki Airplane, a company that built rudders for fighter jets. Business was obviously booming in the run-up to the Second World War.
How can you feel attacked? It's not... It's literally, yeah, it's an observation. It's not me saying I don't like Americans. I've been to America a couple times, and I think there's some very interesting place in America. That's why, you know, the greatest minds of our time, they're moving to America because there's job opportunity there. Well, I don't know, maybe things are changing after the pandemic, but I'm talking at least pandemic. But yeah, the rest of the world, not sure they love them, especially not the Middle East. At least. Europe either. I don't think they like them. And now with people like Johnny Somali going in and causing havoc in Asia, the sentiment of the, you know, they have a word for foreigners, for like white people. There's like the gaijin, and they're pretty frowned upon. I think Joey from Trash Taste has this video on what it's like to live as an American in Japan that I want to watch. I think the coolest thing about America and what attracted a lot of them there is the American dream. So I think Italians and, you know, like cultures that are really into like the merchant culture, they are ambitious people. They like the idea of the American dream, and that's why a lot of them have immigrated to America. I think these cultures are probably more open-minded towards America. But I don't know, I'm just kind of... I might be wrong about that. Maybe they don't like it there either. That's just what I thought. Or maybe I'm just taking that from The Godfather. I don't know anymore.
The war and the Miyazakis weren't exactly short of cash, but they also weren't immune to the effects that the war had on regular Japanese people. In 1944, the family became increasingly concerned that Tokyo would be attacked by the Americans, and they decided to move north to Utsunomiya, over 100 kilometers away. Sadly, that city was bombed in 1945 and they were forced to evacuate. While he was still just a child at the time, the shadow of the war loomed large over Miyazaki's life, even after the fighting ended. In an interview published in the Studio Ghibli magazine Neppu, Miyazaki said that he grew up feeling like Japan had fought a truly stupid war, and that he heard adults speak boastfully of the horrible things they had done on the Chinese continent. He also said, "I heard many stories and I started to think that I had been born in a country that had done stupid things, and I truly started to hate Japan." The business Miyazaki's dad was in is evidently what led to the future filmmaker's obsession with aviation.
America sees themselves as Superman, but they're more like Homelander. And the Middle East sees them as Omni-Man. I don't know who Omni-Man is. Well, I think sometimes America has meddled with other countries' politics and it didn't quite work out. But then sometimes their interests have aligned with some weaker countries and it did help them out. So, you know, at the end of the day, a government is in charge of advancing its own countries and putting his, like, you know, citizens' interest first above other countries. So I don't blame them for doing whatever it takes to advance their own interests, because I think we would all do the same in a position of leadership. Oh, Omni-Man is from Invincible. He's another evil Superman. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, superhuman.
Which often shines through in his work. From Nausicaa's glider to Porco Rosso's seaplane to Jiro's Mitsubishi fighters, there are a bunch of memorable flying scenes in Miyazaki's films. His father was clearly an influential figure in his life, but Miyazaki has admitted that he clashed with him on.
That's why Ghibli has all these 1940s inspiration with the top hats and the suit mixed with some like Japanese aesthetic. I get it now. I'm learning so much from these documentaries.
On a regular basis during his teenage years, while trying to get him to acknowledge his war responsibility, as he put it. His unreflective attitude was apparently common among Japanese adults at the time, and that only made Miyazaki fall out of love with Japan all the more. However, Japan isn't the only country Miyazaki began hating at this point, and there are no prizes for guessing who the other one is. Like everyone else his age, Miyazaki grew up hearing about the deadly air raids and the horrors of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He once wrote, "I dislike the United States that dropped the nuclear bombs and does not regret it." And he didn't stop with America's actions in the Second World War, adding, "I look at people who wear badges of the US Army and US Air Force that filled Vietnam with dioxins as enemies." While Miyazaki's dad was quick to make friends with the American soldiers after World War II ended, even opening an American blues and jazz bar, his son seems to have harbored a resentment that flares up every time the United States goes to war. In fact, it was for this very reason that Miyazaki refused to attend the Oscars when Spirited Away won Best Animated Feature in 2003.
Snubbed Cameron Diaz. Yeah, I don't think they're airing Oppenheimer in Japan. I mean, yeah, well, that's what happens when you lose a war, though. It's like, then you have this other culture that beat you, that starts settling, influencing you, and the people that live there, they don't see them as saviors. They see them as invaders. So yeah, of course, their resentment that builds. Oh, they did? They did show it in Japan? After a year? How did people receive it? I mean, the whole thing about Oppenheimer is that they do feel guilty about dropping the bomb. Like, it's that whole dilemma of, should we do it? Should we not do it? This is gonna cause mass destruction.
He later told the Los Angeles Times, "The reason I wasn't here for the Academy Award was because I didn't want to visit a country that was bombing Iraq. At the time, my producer shut me up and did not allow me to say that, but I don't see him around today." What Miyazaki did...
The US really controlled Japan after the war too. Godzilla was only the second movie that talked about the A-bomb. Oh, interesting. Yo, Godzilla's so old. Do not talk about Godzilla to Nuzagi. He will not stop. He's such a Godzilla fanboy.
Do is openly chastise America's actions in the Middle East with the film that he was working on at the time, Howl's Moving Castle. There's no war in the book that the film is based on, but Miyazaki introduced a pointless conflict between the kingdoms as a way of expressing how fruitless war is. In the film, the supposed justification...
But I agree, there is no victor in war, only widows.
For the war is proven to be false, and lots of people die for nothing. There's no right and wrong side, only victims. No. It's a very different kind of war movie, one that, according to Miyazaki, America...
Yeah, and it's always waged by the people at the top, and they sell you this dream that, you're going to fight for your country, you're doing something very patriotic, it's very brave, it's very courageous, it's like heroic. Once you get there and you experience the horror of wars and the death and the destruction, you realize it's completely different than you imagined it, and there's really nothing that prepares you for that. And at the end of the day, it's always the small people that suffer. It's always the small people that suffer for the whims of world leaders, and it used to be king and queens, and now it's the people controlling everything.
Americans just aren't used to seeing. One aspect of American culture that Miyazaki has been highly critical of on several...
I used to watch Orphan, I watched Saving Private Ryan. Watch All Quiet on the Western Front. That movie is horrifying.
Occasions is the Hollywood war movie. Speaking to Studio Ghibli co-founder Toshio Suzuki in 2002,
are we the baddies? Hell no! We're the protagonists! We're the main anime characters!
Miyazaki compared them to video...
Yeah, that's true, Sneaky Cats.
...games and took aim at the likes of Pearl Harbor and Saving Private Ryan. He said,
there you go.
Aerial forces do their bombing and then it ends. But the one war the Americans couldn't win that way was Vietnam. Because the Americans made films about Vietnam, they had to make films about not understanding things. Films about not understanding Asians, like Apocalypse Now. I really can't understand why Coppola made a film like that. Miyazaki's hatred for Hollywood blockbusters actually extends beyond the realm of war movies, and he's never been afraid to call out the biggest names in Tinseltown. Despite the fact that Jaws is actually... there was a show on HBO about that takes place in the 70s, and it's like about Vietnamese people during the war, and how some of them left. It's like a spy, double agent kind of story, but it's also very funny. And Robert J. Jr., what is his name? The guy that plays Iron Man, he plays all of the characters. He plays all of the white people in the movie. He plays like 7 different roles, and they all look totally different. And it's kind of like Robert Downey Jr. Thank you. Robert Downey Jr., yeah. And it's very funny because in the show, the Vietnamese guy gets hired by this Hollywood to be the Vietnamese consultant, and the director is like, he wants to make this war movie about the war on Vietnam, and he's like, I am hiring you for it to be really realistic. And then when he's like trying to make changes to the movie so it is realistic, and they don't say like bullshit, like the Vietnamese people don't say bullshit stuff, he's like, no, that's not gonna work, dude. We need this to be dramatic. Like he's taking all of these creative decisions that override his consultant stuff, and it just ends up being kind of a caricature of what Americans think the Vietnam War was, because this guy never fought a single day in the war, but he doesn't know that the guy he hired to be a consultant is a double agent and has fought in the war. One of his favorite films, the Ghibli veteran went to town on Steven Spielberg's all-American whip-wielding archaeologist Indiana Jones, criticizing his treatment of the people and places he comes across on his globe-trotting adventures. He said, Americans shoot things and they blow up and the like, so as you'd expect, they make movies like that. In the Indiana Jones movies, there is a white guy who, bang, shoots people, right? Japanese people who go along with and enjoy that are unbelievably embarrassing. You are the ones that, bang, get shot. Watching those movies without any self-awareness is unbelievable. There's no pride, no historical perspective. You don't know how you are viewed by a country like America. Now, Spielberg actually got the chance to meet Miyazaki when he travelled to Tokyo with his daughter, and they apparently had a deep conversation about filmmaking. Martin Scorsese, however, wasn't so lucky. According to Steve Alpert, who led Ghibli's international division between 1996 and 2011, Scorsese invited Miyazaki to his apartment for a drink and a chat when the anime icon was...
The show's called The Sympathizer. It's a dark, funny story of a Vietnamese double agent during and after the Vietnam War. And it also talks about all the people that wanted the communist movement, and then all of the people that were fighting with America, and that, you know, they wanted this capitalist society. And then once they get pushed out by the communists, they fled to him, and then they try to follow the American dream, etc., etc. It's very good. It's funny. It's really funny.
In New York, but he turned down the offer. Alpert was the one who had to tell Scorsese's horrified press agent that Miyazaki just was not interested in meeting him. This trip to New York wasn't Miyazaki's first time in America. After he finished work on his debut feature film, 1979's Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro, Miyazaki flew to Los Angeles to take part in a co-production with an American company. He was around 40 years old at the time, and it was apparently an awful experience.
ここに止まってたんです。間違いないですか。悪夢のような記憶だから。
Well, you know what? Miyazaki, at least they have unions for the entertainment industry in the United States. I know Ghibli Studio apparently has some good working conditions, but I mean, that's something I wouldn't trade with Japan, I think. I think I prefer the way things are done here, even though sometimes a bit too regulated.
覚えてないですね。
毎晩ホテルの近くのバーで飲んだくれ、結局そのプロジェクトから抜けることを決意します。
なんか同じ。なんか昔のまんま。昔のまんまでした。とても春気になれない。
Despite the collaboration turning into a nightmare, one good thing did come out of the months that Miyazaki spent in LA. It was during this time that he came up with the idea
They don't say why it turned into a nightmare. Now I'm curious.
For the manga series Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Nausicaa was turned into a feature film in 1984, and it became the first Miyazaki movie to receive an English dub, which was released in the States by a company called New World Pictures. The near 2-hour film was hacked down to around 95 minutes, and everything from the character names to the title of the movie were changed. Nausicaa became Princess Sandra, and the film became Warriors of the Wind. On top of that, the dub actors were reportedly told absolutely nothing about the plot or their characters, which led to some hilariously bad performances.
Look at that. Hey!
And that's why dubs suck. Okay, I do want to support Western VAs, okay. There are some dubs that are decent, but I don't know if it's because I don't understand Japanese, but there's something about Japanese VAs, listening to it sounds so freaking cool, man. Sounds so fucking cool. It sounds so good.
Oh no!
Oh, they redubbed it? Oh, okay.
Can you
Thank God.
take off from here? I can take off from anywhere! Except under fire!
Now, you have to remember that Nausicaa is based on a manga that Miyazaki wrote and illustrated himself, so when he saw what those darn Americans had done to his baby, he was absolutely horrified. The experience made him adopt a very strict no-cuts policy for overseas releases, and this is what led to his infamous showdown with the now disgraced producer Harvey Weinstein. In 1996, Disney struck a landmark deal with Ghibli and became...
Wait, what did he do with Harvey Weinstein? When Miyazaki sent Harvey Weinstein a threatening samurai sword, I defeated him. Professionally, Weinstein was also known to make excessive demands of the directors whose film he produced, particularly when it came to making runtime cuts. Bong Joon-ho had to lie to Weinstein about his father in order to keep a scene from Snowpiercer, while Quentin Tarantino had to argue at great length to keep the famous Mr. Blonde torture scene in Reservoir Dogs. However, one of the very few times that Weinstein didn't get his way, both professionally and personally, was when he asked Studio Ghibli's Miyazaki to cut down his 1997 animated movie Princess Mononoke from 135 minutes to 90 minutes. Miyazaki refused and sent Weinstein a present to indicate his stance. In 1996, Disney struck a deal with Ghibli to release English dubbed version of the iconic anime films, and Weinstein's Miramax was tasked with taking on Princess Mononoke. Miyazaki was already aware of Weinstein's insistence on cutting films, even if it made them worse, so he anticipated Weinstein's request and got ahead of him. Miyazaki sent Weinstein a samurai sword with a note that read "no cuts." However, it's fair to say that the producer did not take the director's suggestion kindly and set about attacking the Ghibli team. Steve Alpert, a former executive for Ghibli, once revealed that Weinstein said that after learning that Miyazaki was against the proposed cut. Apparently, Weinstein said, if you don't get Miyazaki to cut the fucking film, you will never work in this fucking industry again. Do you fucking understand me? Never. However, Miyazaki retained the rights to the film, so Weinstein couldn't make the cuts without the animator's permission. Weinstein reportedly bombarded Miyazaki with threats, but the Japanese cinema icon stood his ground. "I defeated him," he told The Guardian in 2010. Kinda base, not gonna lie. He is somebody that seems to be, he's kind of like has this honor mentality. He's a very principled man, and he stands very strong with his principles. He's not somebody that's going to negotiate on these things that are important for him. Yeah, for all his fault, he stands his ground proudly, and honestly, that's pretty impressive. Talking about Weinstein, Tarantino watched Hero and loved, but Harvey didn't want to release it. Tarantino had to put his name over it, so they agreed. Is that why I thought Hero was made by Tarantino? But then I think you told me that it wasn't made by him.
Became the new official distributor of their
Thank you,
movies
Ultimate
in America.
Cell.
The relationship got off to a rocky start when some of the Japanese songs in Kiki's delivery service were replaced with American ones, and things got a lot worse when it came time for Disney to release its dub of Princess Mononoke. If you've seen Princess Mononoke, then you'll know that it's way more violent than your average Ghibli movie. There's gunshots, explosions, severed arms, severed heads, animals on fire, exploding forest spirits. I mean, it's absolute carnage. It's not the type of film that execs in
Weinstein does not like being told no. We heard that, Apparently, I think he made an advance to Gwyneth Paltrow, but she was going out with Brad Pitt back then, and he was fairly popular, and he got really fucking mad when he heard that. He called Weinstein, told him to lay off. I mean, Miyazaki was already established then, so it's a little bit easier to stand your ground when you're already very successful and you're in demand. They want you. They're asking you for your product, so you have more negotiation power. Although even if that's the case, there's huge directors like Quentin Tarantino that had to say yes to him, and that's crazy because you would think that these creative geniuses, you would give them carte blanche because you'd think, oh, they know what works best, they've created multiple box office hits, so I should just trust them. But no, Harvey Weinstein is such a controlling little bitch.
California wanted to release under the Disney banner, so Princess Mononoke was shifted to Weinstein's Miramax, which belonged to Disney at the time. Now, for Ghibli to even consider signing this distribution deal, Disney had to agree to Miyazaki's no-cuts policy. For years, there was a rumor that Miyazaki gave Weinstein a samurai sword along with a note reading "no cuts" as a gentle reminder not to fuck with his film, but this is only half true. Weinstein got the blade and the message, but they were given to him by longtime Ghibli producer Toshio Suzuki, not Miyazaki himself. Being the arrogant prick that he is, Weinstein decided that he was going to ignore the terms of the agreement with Ghibli and cut Princess Mononoke down from 135 minutes to just 90 minutes. When Steve Alpert told Weinstein
and this is why people pirate stuff.
Miyazaki would never agree to this, he flew into a rage. Alpert recounted the conversation in his memoir, revealing that Weinstein told him, "If you don't get him to cut the fucking film, you will never work in this fucking industry again. You fucking understand me? Never." Weinstein eventually got the chance to plead his case to the man himself when Miyazaki came to America, but the answer remained the same. Speaking in 2005, Miyazaki said, "I did go to New York to meet this man, this Harvey Weinstein, and I was bombarded with this aggressive attack, all these demands for cuts. I defeated him." Princess Mononoke was released in its entirety just as Miyazaki wanted, and his relationship with Disney became pretty smooth for a while. He even visited the studio's headquarters in California at one stage, though he wasn't exactly impressed with what he saw. Disney was busy working on Fantasia 2000 at the time, and they decided to give Miyazaki a sneak peek. According to Steve Alpert, who was acting translator on the day, when Miyazaki was asked what he thought, he said, "Hidoi." totemo hidoi, meaning terrible. Really terrible. Author translated this as, Mr. Miyazaki finds the animation very unusual and very interesting. Nowadays, Miyazaki's deal with Disney has long since expired, but his feelings towards the United States haven't really changed. So, what's the real reason?
I mean, Fantasia, like, I've heard of that title, I don't remember it at all. Wasn't it a flop? I don't know. I don't remember Fantasia at all. That means it probably wasn't that good.
And that Miyazaki hates America? Well, it breaks down into 3 parts. Number 1, man hates war. A staunch pacifist, Miyazaki has made his views on war crystal clear over the years, particularly when it comes to America. I think the fact that he chose to set the boy in the heron during World War II and show the lives of ordinary Japanese people really says a lot. This is very likely to be his last film, and while it's not strictly autobiographical, it's clearly a deeply personal story. Like Mahito, the film's protagonist, Miyazaki's family...
Miyazaki walked out on his own son's film? That's sad. Why did he do that? Oh, it's a remake. Fantasia's a remake, I see.
Fled to the countryside to escape the firebombing of Tokyo, and the main character's father owns an air munitions factory. This period in Miyazaki's life obviously shaped the person that
He seems like a tough man, like the stern father that tells you you're a failure and you disappointed him, and doesn't tell you how you can get better, just walks out.
He became, and his swan song movie makes it clear that it's still a big influence on him to this day. It's no coincidence that Miyazaki made a point of mentioning war when he accepted his honorary award at the
You dishonored the family!
Academy in 2014.
He sounds like a prick, yeah!
私の50年間に私たちの国は一度も戦争をしませんでした。戦争で儲けたりはしましたけれど、でも戦争をしなかった。そのおかげが僕らの仕事にとってはとても力になったと思います。
Number 2, man hates Mickey. When Miyazaki doodled Disneyland Go Back to America on a sketch back in the early 80s, he could have had no idea just how closely he would work with the Mouse House in the years to come. For 15 years, Disney was responsible for releasing Ghibli movies in the United States, and I think it's fair to say that they did a really shitty job. In fact, they almost arsed up Spirited Away somehow, despite it being an absolute masterpiece. After the whole Princess Mononoke battle, Disney executives were wary of all things Ghibli and weren't really interested in promoting Spirited Away. Pixar's John Lasseter loved the film, and he did what he could to drum up interest, but Spirited Away came out to little fanfare and was practically hidden away on Disney's website. A dead giveaway that they were far from enthusiastic about the film that ultimately won an Oscar, no thanks to them. Number 3, man is grumpy. Miyazaki's movies all got me into anime to begin with, and I think he's an absolute god among men, but there's no denying that the bloke loves a good moan. We've established by now that he hates...
A lot of these really talented artists have, you know, not the most accommodating personality, let's just say
hates
that.
America. However, America is far from the only thing that he hates. Speaking to the now defunct magazine An America back in 1993, Miyazaki said, "I'm not an agnostic or anything, but I don't like a society that parades its righteousness. The righteousness of the US, the righteousness of Islam, the righteousness of China, the righteousness of this or that ethnic group, the righteousness of Greenpeace. They all claim to be righteous, but they all try to coerce others into complying with their own standards. They restrain others through huge military power, economic power, political power, or
Wait, isn't that based? Is it just me or is that based? I mean, he's kinda right. Not gonna lie, he's kinda right.
public opinions. I myself have a number of things that I believe are right, and some things make me angry. Actually, I'm a person who gets angry a lot more easily than most people, but I always try
Dude is a League player before it even was a thing.
to start from the assumption that human beings are foolish. I'm disgusted by the notion that man is the ultimate being, chosen by God. But I believe there are things in this world that are beautiful, that are important, that are worth striving for.
Yeah.
In the years since, Miyazaki has only become more jaded with society. One thing he cannot stand is modern technology. At one point he compared using an iPad to masturbation, and don't get him started on the use of AI in animation.
Oh no! Oh my god, he's gonna have a heart attack when he learns about AI. Oh my god, imagine you show him an iPad and he just like starts raging and throws the iPad on the wall.
説明です。これ頭を使って移動してるんですけど、 基本通貨とかないし頭が大事とかっていう概念がないんで頭をもう普通の足のように
That's
使
gross.
って移動してるっていうこの動きがとにかく気持ち悪いのでゾンビゲームの動きに使えるんじゃないかっていう
これを作る人たちは痛みとかそういうものについてね何も考えないでやってるでしょ。極めて不愉快ですよね。そんなに気持ち悪いものをやりたいんなら勝手にやってればいいだけで僕はこれを自分たちの仕事をつなげたいとは全然思いません。極めて何か生命に対する侮辱を感じます。
Look at the look on their face! Bro, what can I say? He's an artist. He's an artist. Yeah. I don't know, there's something about these type of personalities that I kind of like. I just don't want to, you don't want to be working under them, but you can enjoy them from a distance, a safe distance. He said it's an insult to life and I want nothing to do with it. Damn!
At the end of the day, Miyazaki is someone who never shies away from sharing his opinion on a topic, and it just so happens that his personal and professional lives have been impacted by America in a negative way. Yes, he dislikes the United States with a passion, but after everything he went through in his childhood and given his interactions with Hollywood, can you really blame him? That being
Dude, he's totally Pai Mei. He'd rip your eye out if you piss him off. Do not talk back to him.
said, he's a smart guy and he no doubt realises that the regular people of a country are not to blame for the bad decisions made by those in power.
Yeah.
I'm sure he appreciates all the fans he has in the States, so try not to take it too personally if you're American. And if you can't help but feel a little offended, think about Donald Curtis from Porco Rosso, the only American character to ever appear in a Miyazaki film. Yes, Curtis is the main antagonist of the film, and he's an arrogant, entitled prick who thinks he's better than everyone else. But in the end, he's the one who helps Porco break his curse. When they're slugging it out during the big finale, Curtis tells Porco that Gina's in love with him and makes him realise that he's worthy of affection, that he doesn't need to view himself as a pig. If you've spent any time in Japan, then you'll know that the Japanese don't tend to say what they're actually thinking. But as an American, it's in Donald's nature to be blunt, and that was exactly what the hero of the film needed in order to snap out of a slump. For me, this tells us that while Miyazaki may hate America the superpower, he also begrudgingly recognises that there's some value in the American way. The acclaimed American scholar and philosopher Will Herberg once said, "Americans tend to be moralistic. They are inclined to see issues as plain and simple, black and white." As anti-American as Miyazaki is, this description could easily be applied to him. He calls it how he sees it, and while he might not like to admit it, that's a trait that he shares with all those jeans-wearing, cola-drinking, burger-munching people on the other side of the Pacific. Just don't expect to see him tearing through the streets of Tokyo in a Tesla anytime soon.
Hey, you! Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell button, and I'll see you in the next video.